Imagine an ordinary chambermaid struggling to support her family and a powerful millionaire who believes he has absolute control over his life. What could connect them? One fateful night at the luxurious Hotel Aurora changes everything. Guilherme Moreira suffers a heart attack, and Marina Lopes, with courage and speed, saves his life. But what seemed like just a heroic act turns into something much bigger. Secrets are revealed, internal conflicts come to the surface, and an unlikely bond begins to grow between two people from completely different worlds. But did fate just play with them, or was it writing a bigger story? Discover how a simple encounter can transform lives and reveal the power of love and overcoming. Are you ready to get excited about this unexpected journey? Don't look away, because every second of this story is precious. Marina Lopes held the cleaning cart tightly as she walked through the luxurious corridor of the Hotel Aurora. The golden lights on the ceiling reflected the shine of the impeccable walls. But all of this went unnoticed by her. I was more worried about the clock. The night shift seemed endless, and his mind was occupied with thoughts about the accumulating bills and his mother's upcoming doctor's appointment. However, something caught his attention. A muffled sound was coming from one of the rooms, as if someone was panting. She stopped, hesitant, but the sound became more intense. He approached the door with his heart racing and knocked, trying to hear better. "Sir, everything is fine?" he asked, but got no answer. Instinct spoke louder. Marina turned the knob and found the scene that would change her life forever. A man was lying on the ground, holding his chest and struggling to breathe. Without thinking, she dropped the cart and ran over to him. "Sir, can you hear me?" he asked, kneeling beside him. He opened his eyes briefly, muttering something inaudible. Marina realized she needed to act quickly. He picked up the bedroom phone and called emergency services, explaining the situation precisely. While he waited, he tried to keep him conscious. "Don't give up now. Help is on the way," she said, holding his hand, as if that could convey some strength. Paramedics arrived minutes later, taking the unconscious man away. Marina stayed in the room for a few moments, her heart pounding. I had never been through something so intense, but there was no time to reflect. I needed to get back to work. The next morning, the hotel corridors were bustling. Rumors about the incident spread quickly, and Marina became the center of attention. "So you saved the millionaire Guilherme Moreira?" asked Clara, a curious colleague. "They say he's a difficult man, always demanding the impossible." "I just did what anyone would do," Marina replied, uncomfortable with the attention. "Anyone? I doubt. Most would have fled or frozen," said Clara, laughing. "I bet he'll reward you." Marina shrugged, avoiding the topic. For her, it was all just part of an unusual day. I didn't expect thanks, much less recognition. His concern was about returning home and taking care of his mother, whose fragile health was his priority. Meanwhile, in the hospital, Guilherme slowly woke up. The white lights bothered him, and the pain in his chest was a reminder of how close he was to the end. He barely remembered the moments before he passed out, but an image hovered in his mind: Marina's face. "Who was she?" he asked a nurse. "A hotel employee?" She acted quickly and called emergency services. "Basically, it saved his life," replied the man, adjusting the monitors. Guilherme remained silent, reflecting. He knew he should feel grateful, but there was something more. Something in him said he needed to meet that woman again. It wasn't just the obligation to be grateful. There was something deeper that he still couldn't understand. The days in the hospital seemed endless for Guilherme Moreira. Accustomed to a life of absolute control, he now depended on nurses and monitors who monitored his recovery. But there was something that bothered him even more: the fragmented memory of that night. "Who is the employee who helped me?" he asked one of the nurses, insisting on seeking information. "Her name is Marina Lopes, maid at Hotel Aurora," replied the nurse, while adjusting the devices. She did a great job. He acted quickly and made sure you were alive when we arrived. Guilherme remained silent, the name stuck in his mind. It wasn't common for him to feel this kind of emotional debt, but he knew he needed to find her, and not just out of gratitude. A few days later, Guilherme was discharged and, against his doctor's advice, decided to return to the hotel. Despite his exhaustion, he was determined to thank the woman who had, in some way, changed the course of his life. When he arrived at the lobby, he saw Marina in the corner of the reception area, organizing a cart of supplies. He approached slowly, observing her before announcing himself. "Are you Marina Lopes?" he asked, in the deep voice that was his trademark. Marina looked up, surprised to see him there. "Yes, I am. And you are the man who suffered the heart attack," she replied, trying to remember the name. "Guilherme Moreira," he said, extending his hand. "I wanted to thank you personally for what you did for me that night." Marina hesitated before shaking his hand, surprised by the formality. "I just did what anyone would do. You don't need to thank me," he said, with a simple but firm tone. "I disagree. Many people wouldn't have acted like you. I want to make up for what you did for me," he said, taking a card out of his pocket. "I don't want money." Marina responded quickly, almost without thinking. Guilherme raised his eyebrow, intrigued. He wasn't used to having his generosity refused. "So, what do you want?" he asked, crossing his arms. "Nothing. Just make sure you take better care of your health," she replied before leaving to continue her work. Guilherme stood still for a few moments, watching Marina walk away. For the first time in years, he encountered someone who was unimpressed with his position or fortune, and that made him even more curious about who she really was. The days that followed were marked by an unexpected pattern. Guilherme made a point of crossing paths with Marina during his shifts at the hotel. Always in an apparently casual way, he started a conversation, trying to better understand who the woman who had saved him was. "So, Marina, how long have you been working here?" he asked, leaning against the counter while she organized towels. "Almost 3 years," she replied, without looking away from her work. "And do you like what you do?" continued Guilherme, with a genuinely curious tone. Marina finally looked up, noticing the insistence. "I like being able to help my family. But honestly, it's not my dream job," he said honestly. "And what would it be?" he asked, intrigued. "I never stopped to think about it. Survival doesn't leave much room for dreams." She replied with a slight smile, trying to soften the weight of the sentence. The conversation was interrupted when Clara, a colleague of Marina's, entered the room with a mischievous smile. "It seems that you are becoming Mr. Moreira's favorite," said Clara in a provocative tone. Marina rolled her eyes, clearly uncomfortable. "Don't be silly, he's just being polite," he replied, trying to close the subject. Guilherme, in turn, just observed the interaction, noticing Marina's discomfort. He was used to judgments and rumors, but seeing Marina being the target of it bothered him. Later, in a cafe near the hotel, Marina and Guilherme had a deeper conversation. He finally started to open up. "I lost my parents when I was young. It was an accident. Since then, I have worked as if life were a constant battle," he confessed, looking at the cup in front of him. Marina was silent for a moment before responding. "I think we all carry our battles. I also know what it's like to struggle every day, but maybe you need to find something else besides work," she said gently. "William," he corrected with a weak smile. "You can call me Guilherme." Marina smiled back, and for the first time, Guilherme felt that he was beginning to trust someone other than himself. Marina couldn't shake the feeling that something was changing in her life. Frequent contact with Guilherme made her question things she had always ignored, such as what she really wanted for the future. However, there was a growing discomfort, gossip in the hotel, and distrust regarding his intentions. "Marina, he's not one of us." "Why do you think you are so interested?" asked Clara as they organized the deposit. He just wants to say thank you. There's nothing wrong with that, Marina replied, trying to remain calm. But inside, she knew things weren't so simple. Her life had never been full of good surprises, and that made her hesitant to fully trust someone like Guilherme. This discomfort became even more evident when, that afternoon, she received a call from her mother. "Marina, dear, the appointment has been rescheduled, but the medications the doctor recommended are very expensive. I don't know if we can afford that," said the mother with a weakened voice. Marina felt a tightness in her chest. The costs of her mother's treatment were increasingly high, and she was already juggling supporting the house and taking care of her younger brother. "I'll sort it out, Mum. Don't worry," he said, trying to hide his anguish. Later, while reflecting on the situation, Marina was surprised by Guilherme in the hallway. He was more serious than usual, as if something important was on his mind. "Marina, we need to talk," he said, his voice firm. She stopped what she was doing, feeling a mix of curiosity and fear. "About what?" he asked, trying to sound casual. "I want to help you, not only because of what you did for me, but because I believe you deserve more than this life you are leading," he said, looking directly into her eyes. "Guilherme, I don't need charity," Marina replied, trying to hide the emotion in her voice. "It's not charity. It's an opportunity," he explained patiently. "I want you to accept a promotion at the hotel, a position that values your skills." Marina frowned, confused. "A promotion? I don't even know what that would mean. And what will people think? That I'm taking advantage of you?" she replied, crossing her arms. "People will always talk, Marina. The important thing is what you think about yourself," he said with a softer tone. Marina was silent. Guilherme's words echoed in her mind, but she was still divided. Accepting it meant a radical change, and she didn't know if she was ready for it. That night, alone in her small apartment, Marina reflected on the proposal. The outstanding bills and her mother's health weighed like a constant reminder. For the first time, she considered the possibility that accepting help might be an act of courage, not weakness. The next day, Marina looked for Guilherme. He was in the lobby, reviewing some documents. "Guilherme, can we talk?" she said, trying to sound confident. "Of course," he replied with an encouraging smile. Marina took a deep breath before speaking. "I accept your proposal, but on one condition. I want you to treat me like any other employee here. No privileges," she said firmly. Guilherme smiled, clearly relieved. "Always, and I promise that you will earn this new position on merit, not favors," he said. Later, Marina began her new role with a mixture of anxiety and relief. She knew that she had taken an important step, but also that this decision would mark a new chapter in her life. The first days in the new position were challenging for Marina. The responsibility had increased, as had the curious and, in some cases, critical looks from colleagues. Still, she remained focused, determined to prove that she deserved the promotion. "Marina, I saw that you reorganized the check-in system. It's working much better," commented André, hotel manager, in a surprised tone. "I just thought about how to simplify the flow. I'm glad it worked out," she replied with a shy smile. Despite her achievements at work, Marina still felt divided in relation to Guilherme's constant presence. He made no bones about hiding his interest in her, but she wondered if she was ready for something beyond friendship. One afternoon, while organizing reports in the administrative room, Guilherme appeared. He brought 2 cups of coffee, placing one on her desk. "I thought you might need this," he said, sitting in the opposite chair. Marina smiled, accepting the gesture. "Thanks. It's been a little busy," he replied, taking a sip. "You're coping very well. Better than most would do," he said, watching her closely. "Guilherme, why are you always encouraging me?" asked Marina, finally giving voice to a doubt that tormented her. He was silent for a moment before responding. "Because I believe in you, Marina. Since the day you saved me, I've seen something I can't ignore. A strength, a resilience that inspires me," he said sincerely. Marina felt her heart accelerate. Guilherme was direct, but there was no arrogance in his words. He seemed genuinely touched by something she barely recognized in herself. "I don't know if I'm ready to—" she began, but Guilherme interrupted her. "I'm not asking for anything more than what you're willing to give, but I want you to know that I'm here," he said, letting the words hang in the air. As the weeks went by, Marina realized that her feelings for Guilherme were changing. The respect I felt for him grew, as did his trust. They began spending more time together outside of work, discovering common interests and sharing stories that brought them even closer. One day, while walking through the city, Marina stopped abruptly and looked at Guilherme. "I never imagined that my life would change so much because of a single encounter," she said, smiling. "Neither do I. But I'm grateful for that," he replied, holding her hand. Marina didn't back down. For the first time, he felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be. Later, at the hotel, during a meeting with the team, Andre announced something that took Marina by surprise. "I want to congratulate Marina for her initiatives. Your leadership has inspired us all, and I'm sure you'll do great things here," he said to applause. Marina looked at Guilherme, who was at the back of the room, smiling. He didn't need to say anything. The pride in his eyes said it all. They have decided to keep their relationship low-key, at least for now. But that didn't matter. What mattered was that together they were building something meaningful. At the end of that day, Guilherme and Marina sat on the hotel balcony, watching the sunset. He looked at her with a slight smile. "You know, I never believed in destiny, but now I'm starting to think he's stronger than we realize," he said. "Maybe destiny just gives us opportunities. The rest depends on us." Marina replied, holding her hand. They were silent, watching the horizon. For the first time, they both felt like they were right where they belonged.